Right, good evening, councillors, officers and members of the public who are on YouTube viewing the meeting. I will be taking the chair this evening in the absence of Her Worship the Mayor. Before we start, I'd like to hand over to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Carl Smith.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I would just like to this evening just start by please asking if we may pay a minute's silence in respect of the late Shirley Weymouth, who sadly has passed away since our last council meeting. Shirley was a councillor here in Great Yarmouth from 2000 till 2018 and was obviously the mayor of this borough in 2015 and 16, and I know you yourself and some of my fellow colleagues here as councillors attended her funeral 2 weeks ago. So if I may, Mr Deputy Mayor, ask you to call the councillors and the meeting up to a minute's silence, please. Thank you.
If you'd be upstanding, please. Please be seated. I'd like to ask Sammy now to run through some of the brief housekeeping rules for this evening, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and thank you to all those attending our full council meeting this evening and to those who are watching live via our YouTube channel. To those who are present with us this evening, I would just like to run through some brief housekeeping rules with you. Please could we ask you to use the hand sanitizer when entering and exiting the room this evening, and you will find sanitizers located within the room should you require to use these during the meeting. We ask that face coverings are worn when moving around the room and are only removed when you are seated or standing to talk on an item. Please also remember to follow the social distancing guidelines that we have in place here this evening. We are operating a one-way system in the room, and you will see signs on the doors to assist you. We are not expecting any test fire drills this evening. If you should hear a fire alarm, please make your way out of the room and down the stairs, where officers will assist you to the evacuation location. This can be found across the road outside of the Star Hotel. Anybody requiring help in the event of an evacuation, please make yourself known and the relevant assistance will be provided. Please could I ask that all mobile phones are either switched off or put onto silent mode. And members, I will remind you that should you wish to speak, please raise your hand and wait for myself or the Mr Deputy Mayor to acknowledge you, and your name will be added to those wishing to speak. When called to speak, you will be required to press the button on your microphone in front of you, which will turn red when active. Please can we ask that you speak both loudly and clearly into the microphone so those watching live can hear you. When voting this evening, members, this will be undertaken by a show of hands. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. We can now move on to the agenda items.
Thank you. If we can take item 1, which is apologies for absence, over to Sammy again.
Thank you. Mr Deputy Mayor, we have apologies from Her Worship the Mayor, Councillor Borg, Councillor Cordina-Ackenbach, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Myers, Councillor Waters-Bunn, Councillor Smith-Clare and Councillor Talbot this evening. Thank you.
Item number 2, declaration of interest. Have any members present tonight have any declaration of interest on tonight's agenda? Yeah, over the...
Yes, I have to declare I have an interest on item number 12. Thank you.
And Councillor Wells?
Yeah, item, do I need to stand up?
Yes, please.
Yes, yeah. Item 12, I'm also a member of the Preservation Trust, and on the basis of advice of the monitoring officer, I have some concerns that the two positions could conflict on this item, so I will be withdrawing from that item.
And Councillor Handon.
Thank you, Chairman. I am the Chairman of Community Safety Great Yarmouth Limited and would make that declaration in respect of any matters which may concern Treasury. Thank you.
I think we have Councillor Freeman.
Sorry, Councillor Freeman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Wells, I will withdraw on the item 12, which is Great Yarmouth Preservation Trust.
Is that all? Lovely. Item number 3, the Mayor's announcements. Her Worship the Mayor has asked me to inform you that the civic service will take place on Sunday the 15th of August at 3 p.m. in the Minster. And at this point, I would like to now hand over to Leader of the Council, Councillor Carl Smith.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. All councillors and staff should have received an email from the Chief Executive and myself this evening before Council stating the current situation in Great Yarmouth regarding COVID cases. We know we have currently got the mobile testing units out at Hemsby and doing some enhanced testing out there. The situation in Galston obviously is as well. We've been looking at that all week, and I can inform you that actually on Saturday and Sunday we will be having pop-up pick-up tents where members of the public in Galston and in Bradwell will be able to go along and collect lateral flow tests. These will be run from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. They will be situated near the Bowls Greens up on the Galston Cliffs and also on Mill Lane in Bradwell. And so we will be putting out, along with Public Health Norfolk, social media and some signs to let people know. Just to let you know, the case rate this morning in Galston was currently 1,117 per 100,000. So we've decided to act and act as quickly as we can. Like I said, along with Public Health England, the case rates there have gone up quite considerably during the day. And on that notice, as you know, I've always said that everybody should abide by the rules or the guidance. The guidance is that if you feel unwell and you feel you have COVID, you should ring 119 and get a test sent to you, a PCR test. We have lateral flow tests right across the borough. You know, every member in here tonight has taken a lateral flow test, and the officers to come into this meeting. If a member of your household has COVID, you should stay in and self-isolate. We have to get this message out. If you feel unwell, please get tested, and it's really, really important. If we're going to get on top of this here, you must, act responsibly is my point on this. And so obviously, like I said, if a member of a household is self-isolating, you don't have to self-isolate, but if they test positive for COVID, you will. And on that notice, I've been informed today that Her Worship the Mayor, who as you well know is self-isolating and has a case of COVID in her household, has been unfortunately gone out today. She did go out to get some medicine for her husband, I believe, from Tesco's, but she also went to other places as well. So I can inform Council that I've taken the decision here as leader tonight to suspend her from the Conservative group, and an investigation will continue after then. So that is all I would like to report. Thank you.
Item number 4, items of urgent business. I have not been informed of any urgent items of business for this evening's meeting. Item number 5, the minutes. The Council asked to confirm the minutes of the last meeting held on the 25th of May 2021, which had been previously circulated. Would any member like to speak on these minutes? Councillor Wainwright.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of points I'd like to make on the minutes. This is under item 5, the election of the Deputy Mayor for 21-22 municipal year. The minute reads, Councillor Weymouth proposed Colin Walker. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Adrian Thompson, hereby signed the declaration, and then following the vote, it was rolled the council. I think that should be the other way round. That actually the deputy mayor signing the acceptance should be below the vote when the vote was taken, after the vote was taken. Just seems to be the wrong way round to me. Secondly, I wasn't given the opportunity to speak on this at the last council because the mayor stood up, and I respected the mayor's decision, so I wasn't able to comment on this, but I feel I should comment on this now, purely to say that these were two motions that went forward for the election of the deputy mayor, two separate motions, one by Councillor Smith and one by myself. Now, those motions normally would have been debated. They were motions, and it's quite clear in the Constitution that basically motions can be debated. It was a very, very rare occurrence that I've never known it in my time, that actually two people actually put themselves forward for the same position as deputy mayor. But I'd just like to read out something, basically, that is from the Constitution, so it might interest members.
Excuse me, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Can I just bring in a point of order here, please? I don't know whether the monitoring officer would like to listen to this, but Mr. Deputy Mayor, I thought we just actually done the minutes for accuracy and we didn't debate the minutes. It seems as if we're debating the minutes here tonight, and that is not what we do. We actually is that correct? We just look at the minutes for accuracy. So this is a debate on the minutes, and I think it's, and I would like to raise that as a point of order, please. Thank you.
The first point was a clerical error which will be dealt with. The second point, we'll take advice from the monitoring officers, if we may.
Before we do, could I just say that basically...
No, you can't.
The minutes did not reflect anything that I said.
The monitoring officer, please.
So members shouldn't go behind the reason that something appears in the minutes. They shouldn't reopen the debate. It is simply a check for accuracy, as the leader has said. So
with that in mind, have any other member got any comments on the minutes of the meeting of the 25th of May?
Your Worship, I'm not coming back on what I just said. I won't pursue it. If I can't say it, I can't say it. But there was something seriously wrong that took place that night, and under the Constitution, where I'm not allowed to debate.
Point of order.
There's no debate in this council. There's no debate in this council anymore. It's like a communist takeover.
We'll move on, please. If there's no other member wishes to speak, Councillor Hampton. Sorry, Councillor Price.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Could I just draw your attention to item 16, announcements from the Mayor, Head of Paid Service.
Sorry, Councillor Price, could you stand, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Item 16, Deputy Mayor, second paragraph, last line, it welcomed a new councillor, Robert Peck. I can't see him here tonight. I think that should have been Robert Price. Thank you.
Indeed, that will be dealt with. Yeah. Any other member? In that case, can I have a proposer for those minutes, please? Proposed by Councillor Carl Smith. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Graham Plant. By show of hands, all those in favour?
That's carried, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Well, we must do any against.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, could the monitoring officer just speak, please?
Against, please. 1, 2. And any abstentions? Those minutes are confirmed.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, apologies. Could the monitoring officer just have a point of clarification, please?
Thank you. So with regard to what Councillor Wainwright had said, the business of the annual meeting of Council includes the election of the Mayor and Deputy Mayor. So in a sense, those are not motions in the same way that you might usually think. That is the business of the general meeting, and that's at Article 31 in the Constitution, if you would like to refer to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6, the Service Committee decision list for period of the 1st of March to the 1st of June 2021. And Council are to note that the Service Committee decision list for this period, members to remind you the decision list is here for information only. Does any member wish to speak on this? Councillor Carl Smith.
I'd like to propose that they're accepted. Thank you.
And seconded by Councillor Graham Plant. All those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Item number 7, the Housing Review Account Outturn 2020-21. This report was attached on pages 20 to 31, and I call upon Councillor Grant to present.
Thank you, Your Worship. The HRA annual outturn reflects a deficit of £1 million against the budget deficit of £1.45 million, resulting in a variance of £450,000. The impact of the reduced deficit means the HRA will carry forward £8.5 million of reserves into the year 2021-22. COVID-19 has impacted on the plan's capital improvement works for this year due to access restrictions and reduced resources, therefore causing delays in the capital improvement works budget, totalling £1.27 million being carried forward to support the 21-22 programmes. During the year, there has been significant decline in right-to-buy completions. Compared to prior years, there have been 9 right-to-buy completions during this year against an estimated of 37, and compared to 27 sales in 2019-20. It is good to report that the overall lettable stock maintained by the Council in the year has increased. This is due to reduced right-to-buy sale completions, along with increased stock acquisitions and new build dwellings additions being added. At the end of the year, the stock maintained by the Council would have risen to 5,787 properties. The recommendations for this report can be found on page 20 of the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Donna Hammond. All those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Item number 8, the 2020-21 Treasury Management Outturn Report. This report is attached on pages 32 to 43 of the agenda, and I call upon Councillor Carl Smith to present.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. As the Deputy Mayor has said, this report is on pages numbers 32 to 43 of the agenda. This report presents the Treasury Strategy Management activity for the 2020-21 financial year and includes the overall Treasury position, the borrowing requirement and debt, and the borrowing outturn for the year. The Treasury Management Strategy for 2020-21 was approved by full Council in February 2020, and this report provides the financial Treasury activity for the 2021 financial year and performance against the indicators set within the Treasury Management Strategy. At the 31st of March 2021, the authority had net borrowing of 100 million, oh, that's what I thought it was 2 there, 100 million, arising from the revenue and capital activities. The position includes £134 million of loans, which was an increase of £15 million from the previous years. Largely due to capital spend, the position also takes account of investments, which stood at £34 million at the end of 2021, up from £22 million from the previous financial year due to the timing of cash received. In line with expectations, significantly lower income was generated from cash and short-dated money market investments, included money market funds in 2020-21, as rates on cash investments are at close to zero at present. The cash balances in the year fluctuated compared to the position expected when the strategy was approved, which led to investment exceeding limits previously approved. The higher cash balances were due to the timing of receipt of COVID grant monies ahead of paying out to businesses. So therefore, Council, the recommendations for this report can be found on page 32 of the agenda, and that is that we approve this report, and I so move the report, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Do I have a seconder for this report? Councillor Graham Plant. Do you have any questions on this? In that case, then, all those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions?
That's carried, Mr Deputy Mayor.
In that case, the motion is carried. Item number 9, the General Fund Outturn 2020-21. This report is attached on pages 44 to 77 of the agenda. And I call upon the leader, Councillor Smith, to present.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This report shows the General Fund year-end financial monitoring position for the 2020-21 financial year. In respect of the revenue outturn position, there is a reported surplus of just under £500,000, which the report is recommended be allocated to a number of earmarked reserves as outlined at section 4.4 of this report. The report presents the outturn on the capital programme along with its financing and an updated programme for 21-22, which reflects the carry forward of capital projects not completed in 2021, plus the additions to the capital programmes of the beach huts, the Wellesley, the crematorium roof and marina as detailed at section 5 of the report. The outturn position reflects the impact of COVID-19 on the revenue position for the year. Government funding of £3.5 million has been received in the year for the emergency support, new burdens mainly in relation to the administration of many of the grant schemes and also the sales, fees and charges funding, which was covered 75% of the reduced income compared to the budget. Reduced income was not covered by the fee and charges scheme has been mitigated by the general tranche funding. The detail within the report and appendices provides commentary on the more significant variances compared to the budget. Most significant variances include an addition to the bad debt provision in the year, which has been reviewed to reflect the impact of the 12 months, and debt recovery, reduced income from demand-led services, for example, car parking income, and also more favourable variances from reduced interest payable and additional turnover in the year. The outturn position allows for the roll forward of some unspent service budgets, which has been earmarked for ongoing commitments in 2021-22. Whilst it is a positive position to be in at the end of the financial year, the overall financial position for the Council continues to be monitored closely and regular reporting to Government on the financial impact of COVID to the Council. The recommendations, members, are on page 46 of your agenda, and they are that the outturn position for the General Fund for 2021 are included in the report and appendices. The transfers to and from reserves is detailed within the report and appendices A, along with an updated reserve statement, appendix C. Transfer the surplus to the earmarked reserves as detailed within the report. The financing of the 2020-21 capital programme is detailed within the report and appendices. The updated capital programme for 21-22 as included in the report, section 5 and appendix E. And I so move the report, Mr Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for that report? Councillor Graham Plant. Are there any questions on this? In that case, then, all those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions?
That's carried, Mr Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Then this motion is carried. Item number 10, the Town Deal Heads of Terms, Prioritisation Exercise and Monitoring and Evaluation Update. This report is attached on pages 78 to 82, and I call upon the Leader of the Council, Carl Smith, to present.
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. As members are aware, in March of this year, the Council was informed that it had been successful in securing a town deal of £20.1 million. This was against an original ask of £24.7 million. Therefore, the Town Deal Board prioritised interventions in line with the value of the funding awarded. Details of the 10 interventions resubmitted to Government are detailed within the report. This report also provides an update regarding the heads of terms which have been agreed and the subsequent monitoring and evaluation which will be required throughout the lifetime of the programme. The Council is acting as the accountable body for the funding and therefore carries the responsibility for ensuring good governance, including financial management of all the projects. Council need to be aware of the risk associated with this role, but also to note that additional capacity has already been secured both through direct council appointments and through the use of third parties as appropriate. So the recommendations to Council are: note the agreed interventions. 2. Note the subsequent monitoring and evaluation submission for addressing key conditions by the 24th of May have been addressed. Acknowledge that preparatory work on the delivery of Stage 2 business case is underway, and accept the M&E report scheduling for the Town Deal as per agreed heads of terms. And Mr Deputy Mayor, I so move the report.
Do we have a seconder for this report? Again, Councillor Graham Plant. Are there any questions on this? Councillor Graham Plant.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to bring people's attention to the pages 79 and 70 and 80, where it lists the work that's going on of the agreed interventions. New operations and maintenance base, land assembly, strategic regeneration of North Quay, new Great Yarmouth University Learning Centre, restoration and commercial repurposing of the iconic Winter Gardens, restoration and sustainable repurposing of vacant historic buildings, restoration and adaptation of the historic Ice House as a national centre for arts and circus, public wayfinding and sustainable connectivity, physical enhancements to the railway station gateway as a key point of entry for residents, visitors and commuters, and smart deployment of enhanced digital and connective infrastructure. Deputy Mayor, this is all happening in our town as we speak, and it's something that we all ought to be grateful to the officers' corps for being so, how can I put it, absolutely on focus in making sure that we got the deals in this town. And I can tell you that along with everything else that's going on in the town, with the third river crossing, with the Marina Centre, with what's going on the A47, it equates to about £280 million of inward investment in the town to try and help this town recover and be a good place to live and bring your kids up post-pandemic. So I just want to congratulate the Officer Corps for the amount of work that they're putting in to make sure these schemes come off. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wainwright.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I wasn't going to say anything on this, but quite. What? Have you got a stand?
Please.
Oh, right. I sat down when I was told before. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I would assume that most members have just read what Councillor Plant just paraphrased out. Parrot was a word, there's a saying for it. But you know, it's terrific what the things that are happening. But I think we owe a debt of gratitude as well to the Town Deal Board, who have actually brought this all together in conjunction with officers of GYBC. So I think that should be minuted as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? In that case, all those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions?
That's carried, Mr Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
That motion is carried. Item number 11, the Independent Remuneration Panel, review of members' scheme of allowances. This report is attached on pages 83 to 86, and again I call upon Councillor Smith to present.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Members, this report is to inform you of the need to convene the Independent Remuneration Panel to undertake a full review of the Great Yarmouth Borough Council members' scheme of allowances, including all special responsibility allowances in accordance with the requirements of the Local Authorities Members' Allowance Regulation 2003. Great Yarmouth Borough Council's member scheme of allowances become due for review in 2020. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the review on the allowances was put on hold. Some preliminary work was undertaken in March 2021, which allowed the panel to understand the changes that had occurred in the way members were undertaking their roles during the pandemic. In light of the return to face-to-face meetings from the 7th of May 2021, officers and group leaders felt it would be appropriate that a full review could now be undertaken as the Council moves back into business as usual. The recommendations for the report can be found on page 83, and I so move the report, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Wainwright. Do we have any questions on this? In that case, all those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. Item number 12. Before we take this item, the monitoring officer would like to give us an update. Over to the monitoring officer.
Thank you. I have one point of correction and one of update provided by the Chair of the Preservation Trust. The correction is quite simply that at paragraph 2.6 of the report there is a job title described as Project Manager. That should read Project Director. And the update from the Chair is that in relation to paragraph 3 regarding the company Norfolk Conservation Limited, the Chair has informed me that changes to the directorship of that company are already in hand. There are going to be 2 independent directors, 4 directors selected from Great Yarmouth Preservation Trust, and Darren Barker has already stepped down. However, these changes have yet to be formalised with Companies House. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now take item 12, which is the governance of Great Yarmouth Preservation Trust and Norfolk Conservation Limited, the Local Authorities Company Order 1995. This report is attached on pages 87 to 112, and I'll call upon the Leader of the Council, Carl Smith, to present.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The report before members explains changes to be made to the governance arrangements of the Trust. The changes are necessary for the following reasons. The Trust wished to modernise its company articles, and with a view to doing so underwent a governance health check which was organised by Architectural Heritage Fund on the Trust's behalf. The review revealed 2 key points. Firstly, that the way appointments were being made to the Trust was not consistent with the Trust's own articles, so that the decisions being taken were not strictly in accordance with the rules originally set out. Secondly, that both the Trust and its trading company, Norfolk Conservation Limited, are statutory controlled companies under the Local Authorities Companies Order 1995. A controlled company means simply that the local authority controls the majority of the votes at the company's general meeting, or where the authority has the power to remove or appoint the majority of the company directors, or where a company, as in the case of Norfolk Conservation Limited, is in the control of another controlled company. In order to put the Trust in a position to adopt new articles according to the proper procedure, the Trust needs to have the number of appointees intended under the original article, appointees in the form of both members of the Trust and directors of the Trust. It should be noted that under the original articles, the Council is only entitled to appoint members of the Trust and not directors. The idea was that the Trust itself should have appointed directors from that pool of members, which also includes members appointed by the Great Yarmouth Local History and Archaeological Society. The current requirement is for 9 directors, 5 being council representatives, 3 being Archaeological Society representatives and 1 community representative. However, the number of members on the Trust also needs to be correct, and the members must be appointed in the correct ratio in order that the Trust status as a local authority controlled company continues. It is in order to correct the number and ratio of members that the Council is appointing the Chief Executive and 2 strategic directors of members, not directors, of the Trust. Once the number of ratio of members of the Trust is correct, they can correctly pass a resolution to adopt the new articles of the Trust wishes to use. At this point of adoption of those new articles, the requirements of membership of the Trust will change, with the result that the two of the Council's recently appointed members, Sheila Oxtoby and Ian Robertsons, will step down and no longer required, while Kate Blackmore will continue as a member, and by operation of the articles she will automatically become a director. The new articles proposed by the Trust require 11 directors, 6 council representatives, 3 archaeological society representatives and 2 community representatives. The changes proposed in the recommendations follow the steps set out by the Trust's own advisor as the way forward to adopt the more modern articles the Trust wishes to use in the future. The Monitoring Officer has explained some changes there, and I so move the report. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Graham Plant. Have we any questions on this? Councillor Wainwright.
Thank you, Worship. Well, obviously that was interesting to hear what Carl Smith said. I mean, I sort of understand reports when they're submitted. I mean, when I got this report as part of the council papers, I mean, it's so complicated that I shouldn't think there's any member, I mean, I may be wrong, I shouldn't think there's any members here actually who really understood it. I mean, I believe this has been going on for some years to get to this position. So, you know, it would have been, I think it would have been really helpful if members have had a briefing on this before this report came forward, because, as I say, I understand reports, I've been on the council some time, not as long as some members sitting here, but it's very confusing. And I mean, you're asking us to make decisions on something really we know nothing about. We know nothing about it at all. Just a couple of points on it, really. I mean, we had a presentation from Darren at P&R last week, I think it was, or the week before, and it's incredible what the Preservation Trust are doing for this town. They're highly respected. They have got a lot of credence. I mean, you can only see that by when we went to the opening of the Yare Gallery, the amount of people that came down to be part of that, and not only government ministers, but people from all the heritage organisations. So I find it strange that we're in this position. I mean, I think the Trust has been operating well, and it's been operated well over the years under the chairmanship of Councillor Barry Coleman, and now under the chairmanship of Councillor Bernard Williamson. So, as I say, I'm going to abstain on this because I haven't really got a clue what it's all about. And that's up to other members what they do. But just a point, the recommendations we're being asked to agree tonight is approve the new forms of Articles of Association, then to be adopted by GYPT and set out as Appendix 3. Well, I've attempted to read the Articles of Association, but it sort of does run into a lot of pages, and I think you've probably got to be a lawyer to actually interpret it correctly. But what happens if the Trust, at their meeting in September, decided that they don't agree with this, they don't like it, because there's a lot of members and directors who will be part of that vote. So what happens then? You know, do we just say to the Preservation Trust, well, we want nothing more to do with you? As I say, I'd like an answer to that question, and I'm pleased to see Kate's going on, as I say, on the board as a director. But I was under the impression that basically we have 5 councillors at the moment. One was going to come off that trust, which was going to be Councillor Sue Haken. That was her decision, I believe. And there would be 2 independent, new independent directors or trustees appointed. Now, quite clearly that's not happening now, because Kate is going on. And as I say, I'm sure Kate is perfectly capable. But I'm sure by Kate being on the trust, there would be a real conflict of interest. Not only interest, but loyalty as well to the trust and to the council. I don't really know where that sits, because we have a lot of trusts in Great Yarmouth. As far as I know, no officers sit on that trust, on those trusts. They go along and they listen and they have an input, but they don't have a vote. So I really don't understand it. And as I say, I will be abstaining on this because I don't know enough about it. But I just take the officer's word that it's all correct.
Thank you. Sorry, any more questions? Oh, the monitoring officer.
Mr Deputy Mayor, may I just say a few words before the monitoring officer goes into a bit more detail? In a nutshell, I'm going to try and sum up what you're being asked to do tonight. Great Yarmouth Preservation Trust wanted to make changes to their articles. So they instigated a review and brought in a consultant. In so doing, they found the articles, the original articles, which they were following or should have been following, and we were following and making appointments to the trust. We were doing that incorrectly because we should have been appointing members, not directors. So we have to amend the articles, and the articles have been produced by the trust, so they're the trust's articles. In adopting them, we then make appointments. We then are making appointments as members under the old articles, so then we can sit, adopt the new articles, then we can walk away, and then the Preservation Trust can amend their new articles if they so wish. But we're just getting to a position so they can adopt new articles by having the right people in line with the current articles appointed by the Council.
Thank you. The monitoring officer, please.
Thank you. So in answer to Councillor Wainwright's first question about what happens if the Trust doesn't like the articles, these are the articles put forward by the Trust. So they have been agreed, that in fact they were put forward by that independent consultant mentioned in the report. So they are the articles actually proposed by the Trust. So I don't see that they would now take issue with the articles that they themselves have proposed. The second point with regard to Kate's role as a director of the Trust, Kate has taken advice about trusteeship. She fully understands that her role, in that role as a director of the Trust, her first duty is to the Trust, in the same way that members who are appointed to the same position understand that their duty is always to act in the best interests of the Trust, and with the appointment of an officer, that is no different. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions on that before we go to the vote? Is this another question, or is it?
Yes, question, yeah.
Councillor Wainwright.
Yes, question, yeah. Just on that, as you say there, the Articles Association have been drawn up by the Trust in conjunction with Mr Lomas. But my question wasn't answered. What happens if they're not accepted? You say they've been accepted they're drawn up by the Trust, but what would be the scenario if they weren't accepted? And secondly, could somebody explain to me how NC Limited fits into all this? Because until I got the report, I didn't even have a clue that NC Limited existed. And apparently it's an umbrella company over the Trust. So could somebody just enlighten us to what NC Limited actually does?
Councillor Smith will respond.
I'd love to answer that question, what Councillor Wainwright done there. Apparently it was set up in 2014, Councillor Wainwright, when you were leader, and apparently with your, as far as I know, with knowledge of the chief executive and that at the time, so I'm sure that you would have been informed of that decision. I know the council wasn't, and that was one of the reasons which we were looking at, but that was the answer, Councillor Wainwright, and you were leader in 2014. You need to speak to Councillor Williamson, I think, and check with him.
Councillor Wainwright.
I don't want to excavate this, but I was leader in 2014. A lot of the stuff done with the Preservation Trust didn't come to council. It was something that was probably done with the Preservation Trust. But, you know, for Councillor Smith to start dragging out what people did 5-6 years ago, I think is a bit rich. But I could put up a lot. But still, but as I say, so Councillor Smith has said I should know. Well, I don't know. So perhaps he could enlighten me. Does he know what it is?
I think the question's been. I think the question's been answered.
No, it hasn't. My question is to Caroline: what happens in the scenario where these article associations are not accepted?
It's a hypothetical question, but would the monitoring officer like to respond?
Thank you. They are the Trust's articles. It's their choice. They have chosen to put the articles forward in their present form. So as I say, I think it would be very unusual should they now make a counter proposal. But those articles could then be brought back to Council for their approval. They've been brought here for approval this evening, again on the recommendation of the Trust's own advisor. So that's the reason they've been put before members, is because that is what the Trust's advisor, Julian Lomas, recommended. And I imagine if they now want to change them, their advisor would perhaps say that they ought to be brought back again for members noting. So that is very much in the hands of the Trust.
Right, without going over the same old ground, any more questions? Councillor
Sorry,
Wainwright.
was there a second point?
Yeah, there was a second point, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, I do apologise. With regard to Norfolk Conservation Limited, I think it may be as well to do what Councillor Smith has suggested, because the only knowledge we have is that it was the chair of the Preservation Trust tells me it was done in the knowledge of the Chief Executive and Section 151 officer, but obviously it didn't come to members at that time, but Councillor Williamson would have known about it because he was a director of Norfolk, and is still a director of Norfolk Conservation Limited. So I would suggest that he may be the best person, as the leader has suggested, to ask about the setup of that company.
I hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. I will ask Councillor Williamson when I speak to him next. But it's quite interesting. I mean,
can you stand up then, please?
I will ask Councillor Williamson when he returns from his holidays. But as I say, it's quite interesting. You know, Councillor Smith saying I should have known. We're quite clearly, Caroline said it never came to members. It was probably just an agreement with the Preservation Trust and NC Limited. So, you know, I'm sure there's decisions that are taken that Councillor Smith doesn't know everything about, although he runs the council with a sort of a rod of iron at the moment.
Thank you. Any more questions on this? In that case, we go to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions?
That's carried, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Item number 13.
Mr Deputy Mayor, sorry, if we could just wait for the members that left the room just to come back. Thank you.
Right, item number 13, the Winter Gardens National Lottery Heritage Fund acceptance. This report is attached on page 113 to 117, and I call upon the Leader of the Council, Councillor Carl Smith, to present.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. As we all know, last week we got the absolutely fantastic news that our bid for the grant for the Winter Gardens had been accepted by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, the full 9.97 million. We did announce it obviously at P&R last week. I have got a list here, but I'm sure that I speak for every member in this council that I must congratulate the officers who put in the work on this to get this bid and to get this such successful bid to get this building restored back to its former glories, and like I said, and I'm sure I speak for everybody. So the recommendations are that Council approve the acceptance of the development grant of £420,800 and the terms of the grant and include a project budget of £810,800 to deliver the development stage of the project, that the capital programme is updated to reflect the delivery of the Winter Gardens project, totalling 16 million, along with the financing of the project as detailed in the report. And I so move that report. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that proposition? Councillor Andy Grant. Have any questions on this? In that case, we go straight to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. Item number 14, we have a notice of motion. The motion to be considered is found on page 3 of the agenda pack, and I call upon Councillor Carl Smith to present.
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. It gives me great pleasure this evening to propose that we as elected members of Great Yarmouth Borough Council request that the Council agree to hold an extraordinary meeting of Council to consider the granting of freedom of the Borough to Michael Thomas Gill. I've known Michael for many, many years, and it honestly does give me great pleasure to propose this here this evening. We are looking at holding an extraordinary meeting as soon as we can, but we are at the moment in discussions with HMS Dauntless because I think it would be really fitting, because when Councillor Gill actually was mayor in his first time as mayor, I know he's done 3 terms, but in his first term as mayor, he actually bestowed the freeman of the borough on HMS Dauntless. I believe actually he travelled down from Scotland on Dauntless and into the Outer Harbour. And I think it would be really good if we could combine those 2 freemans together. If we can't, then obviously we'll try and work something else out. But honestly, it gives me really great pleasure to propose this motion here this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Wainwright.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I'd like to second the motion. I think it's a very well-deserved honour for Councillor Gill, and I look forward to the ceremony taking place as soon as possible, really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more comment? Yes, Councillor Penny Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Michael has served this borough, residents, community and council for 38 years, which is no mean feat to start off with. I'm sad that I've only known him since 2015. What has always struck me is Michael's passion and commitment, particularly in the chamber, on different issues that we all debate. But particularly, I feel that Michael wears his heart on his sleeve, a very proud man, and I do support this. But I also would like to just very quickly touch on his kindness, and his kindness to me, as always, has been absolutely amazing. In 2018, I was recovering from surgery, and I was in the foyer, because we were all here because we had by-elections, and I was in a wheelchair. And Michael, in his usual imitable style, walked over to me when I was in the wheelchair and said, "You shouldn't be here, lass. You're ill." We were then told that the lift was broken, and Trevor Wainwright and Michael carried me up the stairs in my wheelchair, ceremoniously, I think, as best they could do it, to leave me up here. So his kindness to me has always been true, and it gives me great pleasure to support this motion this evening.
Yeah, Councillor Brian Walker.
Thank you, your Deputy Worship. I'd just like to say that I'm glad to hear that this is happening. Nobody deserves it more than Michael, and there's already a freeman of the borough. I hope to welcome them to the very, very select club, and it'll be great to have another Geordie there.
I'll come to you in a minute, Michael. Councillor Tony Wright.
Thanks very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. Can I just give my wholehearted support to this motion for Michael? It's certainly a well-deserved one. I've known Michael for many, many years, and certainly was his agent when he first got elected to the council in August of 1986. And ever since then, and even before then, we've been friends. And certainly what Penny said about Michael in terms of his nature being a kind-hearted and a good soul is certainly true. And this is an honour that I think is certainly going to be well deserved, and I think well thought of within the town, and certainly within Nelson Ward, a community that he not only represents but has lived in for many, many years. So I congratulate Michael on this well-deserved honour, and I look forward to attending the ceremony and seeing his family in attendance to get this honour.
Sorry, Kerry Robinson-Payne. Councillor Kerry Robinson-Payne.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I wasn't actually going to say anything, but I just wanted to echo what everybody said. Congratulations to Michael. It's a wonderful proposal. He is one of the kindest people that I know. I've known him for almost 40 years. Yeah, I'm sort of lost for words because he really does deserve it, and he is joining a very elite club. So congratulations, Michael. Thank you.
Councillor Robert Graham Plant.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. When I first came onto the council, and when you're first on a council, you're frightened to speak, you're frightened to say anything, you are looking at what other people are doing, and it's a very nerve-wracking experience. And I do remember getting something wrong, and Michael did tell me off about it quite nicely, to be honest with you. And it was it's not until I got further on in the council I realised that he really was an experienced councillor. He knew what to get for his ward. When I became a county councillor and he wanted some help on the highways, he came to me and we sorted things out. And I think he's one of those people you can actually deal with, you can walk up to, you can make conversation, and he's one of the most friendliest people I've ever met in this building. So I fully commend the proposal and hope that he and his family really enjoy it over the period of time they're going to have it as well. So well done, Michael.
We'll take the vote first and then Michael will respond, if that's okay. We'll take the vote now. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. And the response now from Councillor Michael Gill.
Mr Deputy Mayor, there are a few times in my life that I've been overwhelmed. And tonight I would have to say I have been overwhelmed by the kindness of all of the councillors. The only sad thing I have about this tonight is there are no Labour councillors on the motion. I spent 40 years as a Labour person, and I have to say I am a bit upset that that I'm not in their group now. And Winston Churchill once said this in Parliament when he was taking some people round Parliament. He said, this is where the opposition sits, this is where we sit. And the gentleman said, no, that's where the enemy sits. And he said, no, that's not true. The enemy, you're sitting behind me. So can I thank everyone and thank them all. And it is an honour. It is an honour to be going on the list with William Pitt, Lord Nelson, Brian Walker, Barry Coleman, and the late Charles Reynolds, who I miss all the time because if me and him had rows left, right and centre. But thank you again so much for it, and let's hope things get back to even soon and that everybody that suffered under the pandemic is okay. And the wheelchair was not heavy at all. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Back to the agenda. Item number 15, notice of motion. This motion is are found on pages 3 and 4 of the agenda pack, and I call upon Councillor Wainwright to present.
That would, Councillor Robinson-Payne will present.
Beg your pardon?
Councillor Robinson-Payne will present the motion.
Sorry, that's changed from my agenda. Beg your pardon. Councillor Robinson-Payne will present.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Sorry, we're a little bit short tonight, so I'm doing this. I wish to propose the following motion. Fireworks are used by people throughout the year to mark different events. While they can bring much enjoyment to some people, they can cause significant problems and fear for other people and animals. There are many vulnerable members of our community that are petrified by the loud noises fireworks make, such as the elderly, those who live alone, those that suffer from PTSD and mental health disorders, as well as some children and adults with learning difficulties. These people can be very distressed by the noise, and many have to suffer in silence on their own. Fireworks can be a source of fear and distress for many animals too, including pet animals, farm livestock and wildlife. Animals affected not only suffered psychological distress, but also caused themselves injuries, sometimes very serious ones, as they attempt to run away or hide from the noise. I therefore call upon Great Yarmouth Borough Council to only allow noise-free or low-noise fireworks to be used at any organised firework displays held on its land from this month onward. These events will still be enjoyed by the masses that enjoy firework displays and will also give the opportunity for those who do not like the loud bangs to enjoy them too. When advertising these events can be publicised why we have changed also. I also call upon Great Yarmouth Borough Council to write to all outlets that sell fireworks to suggest that from today onwards they only sell noise-free or low-noise fireworks to their establishments. And I so move.
Thank you. Councillor Wainwright.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Councillor Tony Wright.
Just very quickly in support of the motion, Mrs Deputy Mayor, I think we can all accept that we've all enjoyed the concept of fireworks through our lives, but invariably what has happened over the last few years is that there seems to be more and more firework events. I mean, I remember being, as a child brought up in Millgate, the only time you had fireworks was on November the 5th, and you could only buy the fireworks on November the 5th. And I think nowadays, with the concept that fireworks are used for any celebration, don't get me wrong, I enjoy them as much as the next person. I think what has happened is, over the time, that you've got louder and louder and louder, and they become like bombs going off. And we do have to look after the animals. Certainly, you know, they're all sentient beings, and I think that they have feelings. And I know the number of people that I've talked to within my area where they've said that their animals are absolutely terrified of this. And this isn't a new concept, but clearly it's an ongoing concept. So it's not about ruining the fun of people who enjoy the fireworks, because I think that fun is in the actual displays themselves. So I hope that the council moves along these lines, because I think other councils will probably follow in exactly the same. Many have already done that, and I'm hoping that through Parliament that they'll do something to try and bring in some form of legislation where they can minimise the noise levels of some of these fireworks to minimise the distress that this does cause to animals, both in terms of domestic animals and, of course, wild animals as well.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other comments? Sorry. Councillor Camden.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. While many people enjoy the use of fireworks on special occasions, I appreciate that others may not like them. Fireworks can, of course, be dangerous, and so I'm glad that the use and sale of them is well controlled. The motion we are debating asks that the Council only allow noise-free, low-noise fireworks be used on any organised firework displays held on its land. However, I'm not quite sure whether a silent firework actually exists. Fireworks clearly require some explosive content to be set off. We then come on to some low-noise fireworks. Now, I understand that the distress excessively noisy fireworks can cause to pets and animals, livestock and wildlife. This is one of the reasons that there is a noise limit of 120 decibels on fireworks, which is in line with the current Fireworks Act 2003. And I'm sure Councillor Wright, whose name is on this motion, will be aware of this, as this act was enacted under the Labour government of the time under his tenure as MP for Great Yarmouth. Having sought further guidance on this from a council officer, I received the following response, and I quote, Mr. Deputy Mayor, "To enforce this on our land would be quite tricky and definitely resource intensive. I'm sure, Deputy Mayor, that members are already aware of the great stress on officers as we continue on with the fight against coronavirus, and I myself am very reluctant to put further pressure on them during this time. There are regulations which prevent the use of fireworks between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. all year round, with the exception of the 5th of November, when the curfew starts at 12 midnight, and New Year's Eve, Chinese New Year, and Diwali, when the curfew starts at 1 a.m. on the night. Mr. Deputy Mayor, I understand that where there is excessive noise from fireworks or noise during the curfew period, the noise can be considered a statutory nuisance, and our own local authority health officers have the power to investigate complaints of fireworks noise and act to prevent it where appropriate. The motion also asks that we write to all retail outlets asking that they only sell no-noise, low-noise fireworks. However, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I would like to acknowledge the experience of the National Police Chiefs Council, which believes that banning certain types of fireworks would only push the market underground and make it more difficult to regulate and monitor. In addition, a restriction on certain types of fireworks sold to the public by retail outlets could lead to more individuals buying products inappropriately through online social media sources and from outside the UK.
Can you wind up now,
Mr. Deputy Mayor, for all these reasons I mentioned, I'm afraid I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It really is true that the use of fireworks is now a form of celebration in many ways. And it is really a form of enjoyment and sparkle for so many, be it the New Year, weddings, anniversaries or birthdays. Not forgetting, of course, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Guy Fawkes Night, as I call it, which I and others of a certain age recall with so much affection. All those nights seems to go with a bang. I cannot see where this motion will be of benefit to the majority of residents in the borough, but I do and I fully respect the undoubted problems affecting animals and in some cases our fellow citizens. The very fact that this motion calls for the use of noise-free low-noise fireworks to be used on council land by, in effect, charities, organisations or indeed commercial enterprises who act in the realms of health and safety in a responsible manner is self-defeating. People want to see and hear firework displays. They love to hear the noises, sample the atmosphere, smell the gunpowder or whatever. Just look at the successes we've had on Wednesday nights in the summer in the jetty area on the seafront. The seafront was buzzing. People are enjoying themselves. Charities are going around making a few pounds for their really good causes. And the traders, just as important of all, are making a bit of money from the influx of people who have come into the seafront area from both local and holiday sources. In effect, Deputy Mayor, if the event is like a damp squib, people will not go in sufficient numbers to make these events commercially viable. And I do notice that this was for land for organised events. It does not apply to council-owned residential or other properties. And I agree with my colleague, Councillor Carrington, that as for writing to all the outlets to suggest what they can or cannot sell is probably an infringement of their rights. And as I understand it, and to be honest, they are only going to sell what the customer wants. And if they don't provide it, there are other sources, i.e. the internet, other sources which can give you unregulated fireworks to use. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Wainwright.
Thank you, Deputy Worship. Well, I listened to what Councillor Camden said. I mean, he said that fireworks need to make a bang before they can go off or whatever. I mean, there's a huge amount of fireworks that are actually noise-free. You take rockets, they don't have to make a big explosion. There's a lot of fireworks that are just there to view. But this is, you know, this is a difficult one because the amount of events that take on our own land are pretty small, so it wouldn't tie loads of officers up in enforcement. I think we're probably only talking about the seafront. But you know, there are a lot of animals, there's a lot of vulnerable people out there, there's a lot of elderly people out there that just do not like, as Councillor Wright said, these fireworks are getting louder and louder. And when we say to write to outlets, it's only a suggestion. They don't have to do it. Of course they don't. We understand that. But this is just trying to make life easier for residents. And let me assure you, I don't know how many times Councillor Price has been down to see the fireworks on the jetty. He's probably been down every time, I suppose. But when I've been down there, people go down there to see the fireworks. They don't go down to hear loud explosions. And I live in Bradwell, and I can hear the fireworks in Yarmouth when they take place, because they are so loud. So it's not just affecting people around the Nelson ward and the direct vicinity, it's everywhere pretty well. Now obviously they're not so loud in Bradwell, but you can hear them there, so you can imagine what effect it's having on the animals and residents in the areas that these fireworks take place. We can't do anything about firework displays on private land. I mean, and you talk about Diwali and New Year's Eve. Well, I mean, I know Councillor Camden represents Bradwell North, where perhaps he should come out there now and again and actually hear the fireworks that are going off all times of the year from places within Bradwell. But I doubt if he's ever been to Bradwell at night, but you know, that does happen. So, you know, it is a difficult decision to make, but at least we could make a stand and just see if we could do something instead of just saying, well, we can't do it, it's too much work for officers, so let's just give up.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. Councillor Tony Wright to respond.
Just really to respond, as my name was mentioned by Councillor...
No, I will let you, if that's briefly. I know you have spoke once, but if you're brief, please.
Yes, it will be very brief, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yes, I'm only responding, as my name was mentioned by Councillor Camden. That was 18 years ago. Things have moved on in 18 years and things change. I think what we've done is we've seen that we've put a ban on circuses with animals on our land. We can do this. And I'm very sorry that this has become a political issue, because this is nothing further from the truth. This is just about what we want to see happen within our area. They are suggestions. It's about welfare of animal, welfare of people. And really, I'm surprised that the comments are coming forward for this, because it's not a diktat, it's a suggestion.
Thank you. Any more questions on this? Yes. Councillor Jade Martin. No, sorry, Councillor Barbara Wright, sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to say something. I've witnessed animals being frightened by fireworks. And you say you get the pleasure out of the fireworks. It happens 3 weeks before bonfire night, and it's like the Third World War. And I saw, you say about the fireworks on the seafront. I know this girl shouldn't have took her little dog down there, but she was holding it in her arms, watching all the fireworks. The next thing we saw, it had messed all down herself and done a runner. Now, we're not saying ban fireworks. You can get ones that don't make all that banging. Just think of some animals and vulnerable people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other comments? No, we'll go to the vote then. All those in favour of the motion?
Councillor Robertson has the opportunity to sum up before the vote's taken.
Indeed. Councillor Kerry, Robinson Payne.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. You know, I've heard obviously the arguments from the other side, but I think, you know, as Councillor Wright said, You know, we don't want to be killjoys. We're just thinking of vulnerable people, the poor animals. You know, it's just something that we could do as a council and be, you know, active and show where we could be ahead and show a good thing that we can do. You know, I think that this is a bit of a compromise where people will still get they'll still get the fireworks, but without such loud bangs and noise. You know, I mean, I do get contacted regularly in the summer by residents who absolutely hate that 15 minutes, purely either for themselves or their animals mainly. So, you know, we're not trying to be killjoys. I enjoy the fireworks as well, but some of them are really, really loud. And, you know, as Councillor Price said, you know, a lot of us only remember, you know, the Guy Fawkes. That's the only time we ever used to have them, but now you can have them all year round. So, and as Councillor Wainwright said, you know, we haven't got that much land that we do it on, so it's not going to be, you know, about the enforcement, because surely we've got enforcement officers there on a Wednesday night, but... you know, I just think, you know, just try and look, don't make this political, look at the bigger picture. It's just to help residents and in particularly animals who don't have a voice. So I still move. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
We now move to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? Against? Any abstentions?
Deputy Mayor, that motion is lost.
That motion is lost. Moving on to item 16, note of motion found on page 4 of the agenda pack, and I call upon Councillor Tony Wright to present.
Thanks very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Can I move that Great Yarmouth Borough Council believes planning works best when developers and local community work together to shape local areas and deliver necessary new homes, and therefore calls on the government to protect the right of communities to object to individual planning applications. I'll be very, very brief, Mr. Deputy Mayor, on this, because I think this is a subject I think that most people are very concerned about. And the plans being suggested by government would clearly reduce local democracy and lead to wrong homes being built in the wrong place. That is a view I share with the MP who made that comment in a speech in Parliament, former Prime Minister Theresa May. There is no doubting that opposition to the government's proposals that will take away the ability for councillors, communities and businesses to have a say in where housing development should be put is cross-party. The Planning White Paper proposes additional steps that would remove the planning application stage with its legal requirement for community consultation. It proposes dividing all land into 3 categories: protected, renewal and growth, to be set out in a new style of zonal local plan. In the last 2 categories, once a design code has been prepared, consulted on and agreed, individual development schemes which conform can be carried out without consultation with or reference to the local community. We strongly believe that local authorities, in consultation with residents, businesses and community organisations, are best placed to understand the issues specific to their local area. They must have a say on proposed local developments. The government's proposals will curtail local people's ability to influence development and shape the area where they live. And indeed, I applauded the government's stance on bringing forward neighbourhood plans, because they bring directly the ability for community to determine what they would like to see in their areas. And we're always working on our local plans, which obviously take a considerable amount of time for us to put forward, so we know what we want in our areas. So it's quite absurd that we're in this particular position. We know that there is an acute housing shortage, especially in unaffordable homes. These proposals will not address that problem. In fact, we know that we have over 3,000 houses already given planning permission in the borough. And across the country, there are plans in the pipeline for 1 million new homes already in the planning stage. Yet a lot of these will take years to build. Perhaps the best way to expedite house building is that when an application is agreed, then the house must be built within 3 years, or full council tax becomes due on the development. That will certainly put the whole in the minds of the developers in getting some of these developments forward and coming up to the 300,000 years that the government want. I know this is a train of thought being looked at by some parliamentarians. I urge the Council to support this motion and protect our rights as councillors and our residents' rights who we represent to determine what is or isn't right for our area and not pass this over as some faceless Whitehall official. And I have to say, finally, Mr Deputy Mayor, we recently attended a site visit on Crab Lane and one or two other areas. We opposed those as a council. We took them off the list. Under these proposals, if this came forward as a development area, we'd have no say whatsoever and the bricks would start to be built now. And I can point to every single councillor in this room, and certainly yourself, Mr Deputy Mayor, where there's been planning applications put forward where you as a community and we as councillors have had a say. That will stop should this planning design goes forward. So I urge the Council to give support to this. It has got cross-party support and there will be people obviously very concerned about this particular issue should it see the light of day.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. This is open for comment for councillors. Sorry, I need a seconder for this, or Councillor Robinson-Payne. Okay, yep. Would you like to speak on it or no? No, just seconded it, yep. Any comments from councillors? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'm afraid I will not be supporting this motion this evening because let me just give, Councillor White there has given some facts, so let me read out some facts. There is very little meaningful public engagement in the current planning system. At present, only around 3% of local people engage with planning applications, and for local plan consultations, engagement can fall to less than 1%. As of February 2021, only 41% of local authorities have up-to-date local plans in place. I know we've done lots of work on ours here, and I congratulate all the staff on the hard work they've done, including through in the local plan working group. Updating a local plan currently takes an average of 7 years. 30 years ago, small builders were responsible for around 40% of new homes built. Now that current figure is only 12%. The current system does not lead to enough homes being built. The government is increasing investment in new housing to almost £20 billion. £7.1 billion through the National House Building Fund will deliver long-term housing strategy by unlocking 860,000 homes over the next 4 years. Alongside this, they've confirmed a further £11.5 billion for the Affordable Homes Programme between 2021 and 2026, which will unlock £38 billion in public and private investment in affordable housing over the 5 years. Last year, the government delivered 243,770 new homes, the most for 33 years. The government promises to protect the Green Belt, prioritising building of new homes on brownfield land, making it easier for people to get on the housing ladder, and backing right to buy and shared ownership, providing more routes to home ownership. There are concerns, I know, from many leaders across the country on the planning things, and can I tell the members here that actually I have a meeting with, in fact, the Secretary of State for Housing for the Ministry of Communities, Housing and Local Government, the Right Honourable Robert Jenwick, on Tuesday afternoon, when I and 3 other leaders will be meeting him to discuss these plans. But as I said, I cannot support this motion here this evening. Thank you.
Any other comments on this motion? No, we go to the vote. Sorry. I always forget that. Yeah, to sum up, Tony, sorry.
That's okay, Mr Deputy Mayor. Obviously, once again, very disappointed. I've always considered that planning isn't a political decision, and I just hope that some of the leaders, members, see sense to this in terms of what this actually means for our borough. We're always complaining about some of the ways that the applications seem to go through. and there is an appeals process that goes through. Some we win and some we lose. Recently the planning committee opposed an officer's recommendation on a development on East Anglian Way. It went to appeal and the planning inspector upheld that appeal, so it works. There was another one that the council opposed, which was on the old ferry house, and I learned today that the planning inspector has agreed that that one should go ahead. We win some, we lose some, but it's a system that's been put in place which actually gives the community the opportunity to actually comment on these applications. What it will mean, Mr Deputy Mayor, is that all of the communities around here that are parish councils, you will not be able to put forward an opinion to some of these developments. They will just happen. You may well look at the design code and other issues that will not happen. So I'm hoping that this isn't a diktat from our Member of Parliament that you shouldn't be opposing a government resolution, because this is about our community. This is about our people that we represent. You take that away from us, then the land around the area, and certainly probably more so in the rural areas where a lot of the farmland has gone to development in recent years, you will find that in a few years' time that land will gradually disappear, and you will not have the opportunity to make a comment on that, because the bricks will appear there before you actually know it. And I'm just absolutely surprised that there isn't comments that are being made. This is one small part of the planning legislation, Mr Deputy Mayor, that is a wider thing. I'm not saying everything within that would be bad. And we talked about the number of not enough homes being built. We've come against that problem here in Great Yarmouth, and the problem is that there's land banking. There's land out there that's been given permission for houses to be built. We had one which was on Riverside Road. It was given permission to build over 100 properties on there. The application fell by the wayside because they didn't build over the 3 years. So we know that there's the opportunity to build properties. It's the developers that are holding this up, and this will not resolve the situation because there's nothing within the planning law that states that they must build within a certain time. Yes, they may well lose a planning application. They may well lose that over the 3-year period, but there has to be something in place. And I think the most important thing that I think we should try to defend here on a local basis is our right to represent our communities, and for our communities to have a say in something that will affect their lives, not a mandarin in Whitehall who will determine whether you can have a development on your farmland adjacent to your property or not.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. We now move to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? Any abstentions? That motion is lost. Item number 17, any other business? I've not been made aware of any other business for this meeting. Therefore, unless there is anything else, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you for your attendance.